Hello, everybody. It is June 17th. My name is C. Parks.
And my name is Golden Rose K.
Even though it doesn't say it on your camera.
Well, you didn't.
Now it does. And this is the Park Bench. This is a internet TV show where we're going to talk about video games on the internet. Internet video games on the internet.
Yep,
It's also my
you got
sister's
all that
birthday.
right.
Happy birthday, Nicole.
Happy birthday, Nicole, indeed.
How was your week?
It was a week full of games. Like every week.
Lucky.
Yeah, I know. How was yours?
I don't really remember a lot of my week, if I'm being quite honest.
Getting old.
I never
you know?
do. It's the age.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the age. I do have stuff coming up in, a couple, like I'm going to PAX West now,
Yeah.
so that's exciting. Wife and I are gonna go to PAX West. I'm interested to see how it differs from PAX East, because I always viewed PAX West as like the main PAX.
Wasn't it the first PAX?
It was the original, yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's even
Yeah.
a PAX South now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so my week was, standard. I played a little bit more Switch 2. I've been playing the Fortnite on Switch 2, because it runs a heck of a lot better.
You gonna play the new mode they just like announced?
I don't exactly understand what it is, other than just like it's the same thing but fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm sure I'll try it.
Gotta get in and get out faster. Keep your ADD brains going.
Yep. That's what I have. But yeah, I've playing a little Switch 2. That's about it. It's easy to pick up and play. And then also my wife plays Fortnite with like her sister and some friends, and now with the Switch 2, it's very easy to sit in the same room and play rather than playing in different rooms. So
yeah,
that's nice.
the advantage of these portable consoles. Definitely, it's like I can still play with you, not on the same TV. We can be hanging out.
Yeah, we've tried split screen Fortnite, and it's just I'm glad it's there, but I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Speaking of Switch, it's in our topic list.
Whoa, our topic list.
It's in our topic list.
The Switch.
I did it wrong. I didn't change any of the topic titles. Okay.
What the heck?
I've been so busy trying to do so many other upgrades to the show that I forgot. But we've got Switch 2 sales. They're real good. Best ever. And
for console opening week, yeah.
Yeah, best ever opening week. And then we've got Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong Direct for Donkey Kong Bonanza. Tomorrow?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think 6 a.m. your time.
Yeah, not a time I'll be up to watch that.
Yeah.
It's also
live react to it with me at 9 a.m.
Yeah. And then I don't remember what else we got. I'm gonna talk about a little bit about the new game coming out, FBC. FBC Firebreak, which is the new multiplayer game from Remedy. It's, the Control guys, the Alan Wake guys. It's their new game. And it's on Game Pass. You're gonna talk about your Next Fest experience.
Yeah,
because you played a heck of a lot of Next Fest demos.
Arguably too many games.
Way too many games, but you burnt yourself out at one point.
It took a miracle to get me back in. And by
Yeah.
miracle, I mean I just waited an extra day to cool down.
Yeah. Yeah. You just had to let your cooldown timer run out and get your
Hmm.
stamina back.
Yeah, my energy meter, because I am, if you don't know me, a mobile game with microtransactions, and my energy meter, somebody had to pay to get me back in.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully we don't have to do that in the middle of this show. And then what else? And then we've got I want to well, I guess we're both going to talk about
Yeah, well, yeah.
what's going on with like video game genres
Hmm. Hmm.
and likes and clones. Um cuz there's, a lot of weird nonsense going around what people are calling video games these days, how they're being classified.
If you don't show me a Pong like in 2025, then what's the point?
A Pong like. Yeah, we've had some like
Mhm.
uh breakout likes.
Yeah.
For instance, that ball pit game from
Hmm.
Devolver is kind of
Breakout.
breakout and rogue like, and I think like there's some sort of management component going on. That's what I mean
Hmm.
with genres. People are just mashing everything together and it works and sometimes it doesn't work. And then we're going to talk about remasters a little bit, right?
Yeah, I want to talk about remasters. I want to talk about kind of their value and what they have to offer, but what also differentiates a good remaster and a bad remaster, and kind of all the nonsense that goes along with that
Yeah.
in the community.
Yeah. There's
Yeah,
and
all good.
if I don't know if you're going to get into remasters versus remakes.
Yeah, we can talk about that too.
Yeah, cuz that's a thing.
Hmm.
Um so I guess we'll hop into our first topic, which is the Switch 2 sales. Um,
That darn
which,
Switch.
like we mentioned, best opening week ever.
Hmm.
Um, I think a large part of that is attributed to how available this system was in comparison to systems in other system launches in like recent memory.
Yeah, I think that's 100% mostly it.
Yeah.
Um,
PS5
I think
was
PS5,
nowhere,
you go,
right?
no,
Yeah.
no. You get lucky, you get one within a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months.
Yeah.
And there are reasons for that, obviously, but it wasn't anywhere, so therefore sales numbers weren't as big.
Yeah. And then if you go as far back to the Switch,
Mhm.
um my experience with getting a Switch, I didn't get a Switch at launch,
Mhm.
but I got it super close to launch where, the Switch 2 I got in line for, got it, and then it just felt like anyone could go out and find a
Mhm.
store with it. And the Switch 1, I didn't get that notion from like how things were, but it is what happened to me
Mhm.
where one day Tara just decided she was like, I'm gonna buy Chris a Switch, and then just like called up some places and found one. It was a little ways away,
Mhm.
but she was able to just go get one.
Yeah, anecdotally, like Nintendo Switch launch, I worked at GameStop
Hmm.
at the time, and it was easy for me to get a pre-order because like I see a newsletter going, hey, Switch pre-orders are available, and I go to my coworker, I'm like, hey, I want to do this pre-order right now.
Yeah,
I'm just like I get first come first serve. Um, but like, you know, we didn't really have a whole lot in stock after that for a while. It was definitely like all of our pre-order stock was what we kind of had for like a week, for like 2 weeks. Um, and then so like and we ran out of it pretty much all the moment we got it. So yeah, it was like harder to get. We didn't have as many. Like I think we had like I would say like maybe 17 to 31 consoles like for pre-order even available.
that is
Where it
that's
but
crazy thinking about like how this launch went too. Because
Yeah, and there were a whole bunch more in most stores.
yeah, like the Switch 2,
Mhm.
I went to a Best Buy, had two lines. Both of them had like hundreds of people in it.
Mhm.
Um and so the fact that like one store got like multiple hundreds of consoles, regardless, like you like GameStop is different. GameStop's tiny.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
GameStop doesn't have the back room for hundreds of
We did not.
consoles.
We did not.
No,
They certainly tried.
I worked at a GameStop too, and it's not how it works. But just yeah, just that any store was able to like stock up that much to me was like crazy. I was worried in line
Mhm.
when I got there. Actually, I got there an hour early. I looked, I saw two lines, and I was like, "Holy crap, this is kind of crazy. I hope there's enough for me where I am in this line." Um, and then just like as the time went on and got closer, the line just like doubled in size. Um, and I was like, man, I hope I get mine. And
Mhm.
then I started getting closer to the front. Uh, I see the other line also moving, the like not pre-order line, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's either a sign of they have enough, or I'm gonna be real mad if I don't get one because they were giving it to people who didn't pre-order. Um, yeah, again, that just goes like Nintendo was ready for the sales this time.
Yeah, I think it is like kind of objectively the smoothest console launch maybe ever, like in the modern era, I'll say, because like
Yeah,
who knows
the
how things
pre-order
went
was
back.
not good, but the
No,
launch
pre-order was not good.
itself,
And
yeah,
then there was like a lot of like the well, yeah, what you always get, internet cancellations, box store cancellations, but then they were like, hey, you actually can pre-order it. Like Walmart, I think, had a thing. And then like I know like deliveries with Target was a little messy, but the fact is at the end of the day, like even if you didn't get pre-order, like I didn't pre-order it. I just walked into a Walmart the day
yeah,
after and I went, hey, you got Switch 2? And he went, yeah, I got some Switch 2s. And I went, all right, I'll buy one.
and that's awesome.
Um, Yeah, and there were still plenty there. Like he said, yeah, he's like, we have a whole bit, and he was like, I don't think people are buying them, and I'm like, I don't think that. I was like, you store employee, I was like, I'll listen to what you have to say because like you're the one working.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, he was just like, yeah, I just don't. People are over this Nintendo magic, and I'm like, okay. I was like, all right, man. I was like, if you think so, I'm gonna
no,
just let me have my system.
yeah. And then one week
And guess
later, it
what?
was the most magical.
Yeah, the most magical.
Mm, yeah. I have
3.5 million.
3.5 in
It's
four days.
a lot of numbers,
That's a
big
lot of
numbers.
number. You're averaging almost a million per day
Hmm.
at launch. I have the I have a Wikipedia open right now for the sales, lifetime sales of video game consoles.
Mm.
Um, Switch 2 has already sold more than the Wonder Swan and the Wonder Swan Color. Can you believe that?
Heck yeah. So here's the thing about the Wonder Swan.
Yeah.
It died before its
I'm gonna
time.
move you
I
over.
really could have made up that gain there. No, I mean, but like, yeah, it's just like it's going to keep raising. It's above the N gauge, everyone's favorite console, um, phone, um, and it will keep rising, and it will keep, and it will keep, and I'm very excited to see kind of where it will land, and a lot of that now comes down to like games, right?
Yeah.
You get your hype, new technology hype, um, that's going to get people to go to the stores, and then you have like your second, third, fourth bump. You're going to get your bump when like trying to think real quick,
You,
like Pokemon comes out.
you'll get
Pokemon.
like a holiday season bump.
Hmm. And
Um
like you get your system sellers like Pokemon whenever a new Mario comes out, if a
mhm,
new Zelda kind of stuff.
mhm.
Um So I don't know. It's doing incredibly well. It's definitely gonna. I think it has the potential to reach like that top 10 spot.
Yeah.
Um, Remains to be seen whether or not it
I mean,
will.
I took a look at that list at this list the other day,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean it's dominated by Nintendo and Sony.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so like Dinnermancer said in chat, I can't bring it up because I brought up my little chat thing too late and it doesn't preload messages.
Gotcha.
Dinnermancer said people keep saying it's over for Nintendo. They're coping so hard. It's never over for Nintendo because Nintendo has its own like demographic.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't completely intersect with Sony's demographic because a lot of it is its own. But like, yeah, I just don't think Nintendo will ever, not in my lifetime, just be done.
I mean, but like that's like us speaking now with the success of the Switch, though. Also, right?
I mean,
Like you look at like you go down this list a little bit, you see like the only 13.56 million for only for the Wii U, and
yeah,
then like that's not ideal. That's definitely a fumble. That's definitely like like that's what if you were ever going to worry that like that's when you worry. People who are out here being like you don't need like the Switch 2 is going to fail because of blah 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 blah, and I'm like it's not because the amount of goodwill Nintendo has now for
even
every
for
bad
all the
decision they make.
even for all the bad will Nintendo
Mhm.
has, it has enough goodwill to
Mhm.
make up for it all with everyone, even those people who have bad will towards Nintendo for whatever reason.
Mhm.
Those same people are buying the systems. There's there's like very few times where somebody's like, I'm a huge Nintendo fan, but screw them because of this reason, and they don't like
Yeah.
have the newest generation.
Yeah, and that's because honestly, I think a lot of it has to do with like our the way like our nostalgia brains work now, where like you're like I got to get the new Nintendo because I got to play the new version of childhood video game.
Yeah.
Um, like I loved playing the Rolodex my brain Kid Icarus, and like this might be the year they finally put Kid Icarus on a new console. I don't know, but like something like that. It's like the Mario. It's like I loved Mario as a kid. Like maybe now I should like get a game again and play the new Mario or whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
the Nintendo IP is what sells Nintendo systems. It's
mhm.
the best IP out of the three major game uh companies by
Sales
far.
wise for sure. Yeah.
By far in my mind. Like
Mhm.
um it like it's they hit more again, yeah, just like more age groups with their IP where like Sony, for instance, Sony doesn't have a lot of first party games that you're selling to a 12-year-old.
Astrobot, Astro. I can't sing the song right now, but
No,
that's what they got. That's what they have.
they
They
have
had Little Big
Astrobot.
Planet, and then they killed Sackboy
And
back in
they
the backyard.
they did. But also Astrobot, which is funny, is very Nintendo-esque.
Hmm.
Specifically that last game, where it is very like the whole game is just like, look at all this nostalgia.
Hmm.
We've never made one of these games before, but look at all this other stuff we used to do. And it's cool, it's nice. It was a game of the year. Um, I don't know if Astrobot sells PlayStations.
No, not really.
Mario sells Nintendos.
Hmm.
Zelda sells Nintendos. Animal Crossing sells Nintendos. I don't think Astrobot sells PlayStations. I think it's amazing game for anyone who has a PlayStation.
Suspicious you didn't mention Pokemon, which is, you know, historically,
Pokemon
it's the
sells the most Nintendos.
it's the reason why the Nintendo DS is number 2 on this list.
You think?
I think it's very very much a I think at least a third to half of those DSs are bought for um Gen 4
Okay.
or Gen 5.
Was that when Pokemon was last great? Was the DS games?
You could argue that. I would say that Gen 5 is, I mean, this is a different conversation. It is still my favorite generation.
Black and white?
I still black and white, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but at the same time, I think a lot of people will say Gen 4 Platinum Diamond.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, but like I think there's a big conversation with it. It also has generally good adaptations of all their IPs though.
And it was Nintendo's like it, first like big leap in my mind
Mhm.
into like doing some wacky new gameplay you've never seen before,
Mhm.
like not necessarily gameplay, but like, yeah, like ways to play. Like that was very new. That was a new thing for everyone to experience.
Which is crazy considering how like weird it is to think about holding a console with one hand and then tapping on it a bunch with the other hand. Like it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't feel very intuitive. But it
It
worked for the most
it
part
worked.
until you hurt your screen too much trying to play Pokemon Ranger.
You just burning a hole into the center of your touch screen.
Yeah.
Listen, Pokemon Ranger on Switch 2 feels very reasonable.
The mouse controls is we can do it.
Mouse controls, or even just the motion controls. But yeah, the mouse controls is mostly what I was thinking.
Mhm.
Um, so we look at this
Later show
list.
topic, real quick. We should talk about whether or not Pokemon will re go back to the well with any of these offshoot franchises. Like, will Ranger return? Will Mystery Dungeon get a new one? Will
Rumble.
Rumble, Pokepark?
Hey you.
Hey, oh my God, you get me to yell at Pikachu a bunch. I will.
Hey you Mimikyu.
So good. We got it. We built it. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah, you look at this list here. Switch. Where is Switch?
Three.
Where's Switch 3?
Number
I'm
three.
crazy.
Mm-hmm. You
Um
are.
152 million.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine that this surpasses the DS at some
Mm-hmm.
point.
Yeah,
Um
for sure.
I'm at this point normally I think it's like uh most of its sales are going to come from like uh smaller markets
Yeah.
where video game consoles are just very expensive, and now the Switch is going to be much cheaper.
That's one thing I'm rather interested in is how much cheaper does the Switch One get? Can it get much cheaper in the market conditions, in the global economy, in the hellscape that is reality? Um, how much cheaper does that console actually get?
Yeah.
Um, and like luckily the Nintendo Switch, like the fun fact about all of these numbers is that it combines system generations. So it's like the Switch and the Switch Lite are all like one
Yeah.
thing.
Yep.
So like that Switch Lite can get down there
Abs-
probably rather easily and whatnot, and
I agree.
that will push it over numbers wise.
Mhm. Um I I do it's tough for me to look at any new console launch
Mhm.
and reasonably think that it could sell 150 million units.
Yeah,
So it's hard. It's hard for me after Switch 2 getting the biggest launch to still be like it's going to outsell the Switch. Cuz then when you start
Mhm.
saying it's going to outsell the Switch, you start going into it's going to outsell the PS2.
yeah,
Um
and who knows if that will ever happen to anywhere at any time.
yeah.
Like,
So I don't know. I would put Switch 2 around maybe the 100 million mark with Wii.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think the Wii had an extra, again, it had the motion controls, so it had that extra novel thing, and it was marketing itself to uh a lot of non-gamers. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of
Everyone's
elderly
grandma had a Wii.
homes had
Mm-hmm.
Switches. I mean, Wii's. I think Just Dance still releases on the Wii.
The last, I think 2 Just Dances ago, I remember this very vividly. There's a whole story I read. I think 2 Just Dances ago, they said we're no longer developing for the Wii.
And that's crazy that it even lasted
Yeah.
that long. But it just shows you again,
Mm-hmm.
like there was such a market for like those non-gamers. Um, I don't think Switch captures that quite the same. Um, but yeah, if I had to wager right now, I think it sells better than the PlayStation 3.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it sells better than the PlayStation. It's oh man, it's tough because like future projections like this are always really difficult in a world that feels more uncertain than ever.
Yeah, that's true.
Um, yeah, so like, yeah, like in my heart of hearts, if we lived in a like a 2010s economy, it could definitely surpass that,
'Cause
I think.
it's also it's weird to look at these numbers and
Hmm.
remember the PlayStation 3 was like, from what I remember, it was looked at as like it lost that generation.
Yeah,
It sold more somehow, but like
yeah. So
the feeling was that the Xbox 360 was the
mhm.
console for that generation.
Yeah, and a lot of that comes into that the PS3 sold like like these numbers, these units sold count new console sales, doesn't count used console
Yeah.
sales. And the Sony sold new PlayStation 3s far longer than Microsoft did. If like we'd have to find a different chart, but if you broke down those sales by like year, it's like the PS3 surpassed the 360 like as PS4 and Xbox One was dropping or had already came out for like a year. Like it passed it in like the technical sense, but in like everyone's mind share, the 360 won the generation because that's like the one that sold more. That's the one everyone had, and it just so happened that later on, as PS3 again was the more expensive console too, dropped in price a bunch, and it was like a cheap Blu-ray player.
Yeah.
In the same way that the PS2 is a cheap DVD player.
It also, Sony sells in Japan and Xbox doesn't.
That's very true.
Yeah, so
And
it
where else are you gonna play Final Fantasy 13
yeah.
to this day?
Um
Trapped on the PS3 and the Steam.
yeah, but the what I was going to say is like PlayStation 3 lost that generation.
Hmm.
PlayStation 5 has won this generation, and it still has 10 million units to sell before it reaches
Hmm.
PS3.
Hmm.
Um, I think that's weird. PlayStation 5,
Yeah.
like we said, it had a rough launch. It was very difficult to find. And then like its narrative this entire generation has been there's no games on it. But it's still the console. Our console's dying, Kay.
Um. Arguably and maybe objectively, sales wise, yes. I just wanted to talk to Dinner Manch's point is like, did the PS5 is above the Switch?
No.
The talking about winning generations, the Switch sold more than the PS5. The talking about generations and what won the generation, I think, is kind of complicated
It's weird. It's
in
a
the
weird topic, yeah,
last like
yeah.
15 years because the Switch came out during the like halfway through the PS4 and Xbox One generation and sold far more into the PS5's generation because Nintendo is now working on a like just their own schedule, their own tempo.
Yeah,
Um,
generations. Nintendo messed up like gen, like the
yeah.
console generations because they do this half. They don't come out what like at like it used to be like within a year you would get the Xbox, the PlayStation, and a Nintendo console, and now it's just
Mhm.
like Nintendo does its own thing, which is working for them. They feel like a different market. Um,
Mhm.
but
To go back to your point though, Chris, consoles are I think a lot of that is true. Like you look at sales for video games, like you sell a lot more you do on PC now. You sell a lot more on mobile devices. Phones
mhm.
can now play games like Resident Evil 7. Like you can, they're comparable. Like these handheld devices can, like the Switch or the Steam Deck and the ROG, what's still relatively niche, the other ones, like the handheld PCs, they're still biting into that console market, which isn't as successful um, worldwide. I recently was watching in the Giant Bomb Summer Games Fest couch. They had a developer or a writer from Argentina there, and he was just talking about like, yeah, consoles don't sell. We don't write articles about consoles very much anymore, because like in a lot of the South American markets, PC gaming is what people do. They game on their PCs. They have their like medium size PCs. It's cheaper for them. Um, and it's just like this is where the value is. And it used to be in our day that like you would buy a Xbox 360 for I don't remember how much, 300 something dollars,
Mhm.
$350. I can't remember. And it would work and you'd be able to play your games on it. And that was a way easier entry price than a computer. And now a PS5 is 500, $600. PS5 Pro is $800 or whatever it was.
Yeah,
Um,
yuck.
when you can get a PC that plays all the similar games for far cheaper now. So I think like that's the next like the reason why Switch I think does so well is that it offered a different path than like it was a different type of game you played on the Switch by it being mobile, it being like co-op and movable around and you could easily play with your friends. And that's a good alternative to a computer, whereas consoles are kind of not doing that. They're trying to be computers.
Yeah, yeah, and
Well,
it like I don't know if you shared that Xbox is like working on their next thing, right? Which
yeah.
PlayStation also just said. PlayStation also was like, we're looking ahead at the PlayStation 6 now. Xbox was like, we're looking ahead at the next things we're doing. Did you watch their
Mhm.
video that they put out about it
I
with
saw
Sarah
a part
Bond?
of like Sarah Bond talking about
In it,
like
she talks about how um they're working to make Windows the console of uh or the operating system for video
mhm,
games. Um Xbox Series S and X I believe already work on or I think it's just like I think it is Windows. It's just like a
mhm,
weird modified version of Windows. But she also says in it she alludes or mentions not restricting which marketplaces video gamers get their games from, which to me was just like, oh, they're putting Steam on the next Xbox.
mhm. And I
Um,
think that's what you kind of have to do.
yeah, so it is this interesting thing that like consoles are just prying themselves closer and closer to being PCs.
Mhm.
Um,
Two things,
mhm.
real quick. One, you should change the the category that we're in. I forgot to mention that before. On the Twitch channel.
Not
Um,
co-working
yeah,
podcasts.
yeah. Anyway, but anyway, I forgot about that. Two is that I think now, as we like, Phil Spencer once said that like Xbox lost like the worst generation to lose, which is where like your your digital library, the Xbox One lost in a place where your digital library, your games that you owned are now future thinking. You're now forward. You're now like able to carry that onward. Whereas like, they're like, we lost a lot of brand because now when people are going to buy their Xbox One X, they're gonna or the PS5 and they're like, oh, but I own all my games on PS4 digitally, they'll buy a PS5. The same thing kind of happens with Steam now, where like you need to be able to play your digital library from Steam
Yeah.
on whatever now because you own so much on Steam, it feels lesser to not be able to play like whatever nonsense you have on Steam
Mm-hmm.
um in your home device. It just like the next logical solution is boring. It's just like this like hybrid multifaceted console.
Yeah. There are games that are cross platform where your progression goes between platforms, which is
Mm-hmm.
cool. That doesn't mean that you don't have to rebuy it on that other console though. Um and so yeah, I don't know. I think there's this like maybe it's the economy. There's this growing uh like video game, they've been doing it for a while, like these ecosystems, these families, like being in the
Mm-hmm.
Xbox family is why I keep buying the Xboxes and not PlayStations, is because
Mm-hmm.
I had an Xbox 360, an Xbox uh One. And so like I was like, well, I'm going to keep getting Xboxes because I can keep playing my old games with them.
Yeah.
Um I I can get PC to PC to PC and play all my Steam games. And then even with like Nintendo, I it's always Nintendo that's playing catch up, I guess, on this
Yeah.
stuff. But like a big thing with it is playing Switch games, and then now them adding all the NSO console stuff.
Yeah, so it's just always Nintendo's in a weird place because they've always been like, hey, you can buy your old games on our consoles. Like you
Yeah,
can like the Wii shop and like that kind of stuff and game classics and but it was never like you carry over your data until like now, which
yeah.
is neat. Pleasantly
Maybe
surprised I'm still able to play Pokemon same save from on my Switch 1 to my Switch 2.
they
I thought it
did
was gonna blow up.
they did start doing this like data transfer stuff, but it was always like it was from system to system, not like generation to generation. Like I think I
Mm.
remember it with like the 3DS.
Yeah.
Like I could transfer my stuff from the 3DS to the 3DS XL. Switch, you could transfer from Switch to Switch Lite. Um and then now it's Switch to Switch 2.
Mhm.
Um I don't know. It's important. Xbox knows this stuff. Xbox is like this has been Xbox's thing where it's like we want you to be
Mhm.
able to play your games whenever and wherever. Um they're
It's
just
just
not
a matter of being able to execute that
yeah,
and
they're just
also get that marketing up in a way that makes sense.
yeah, and like Nintendo and Sony's marketing is just like far far ahead, and at least within the family they're doing that where
Mhm.
Xbox is also doing it and like more expansive because you can play Xbox on PC. Um you just don't like I forget there was I forget who I was talking to recently. Um oh actually, I think it was actually Mewtwo King
Mhm.
where um they were like, "Oh, I might play Clair Obscure, maybe." but I don't have like a console to play it. And then I was just like, "Do you have Game Pass?" And they were like, "Yeah, but I don't have an Xbox." And I was like, "Well, Game Pass is on PC." And it's just like something that like people don't know.
Hmm.
A lot of people just don't like, they know Game Pass and they know it's great, but they don't know that it's also on PC. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I think that's
To answer your question from forever ago, or even my question, I think the Switch 2 can pass the PS3. And I think it will. It's a matter of time, and it requires, like, this is a boring answer. It just requires, like, the world to not keep descending. Um, it requires people to have the money to be able to buy it,
yeah,
like, at the end of the day.
it's available.
And
That's the biggest
it's
part.
available. It will get there, assuming that the world lets it get there, which is really a non-answer.
Yeah.
But I would bet it's over PS3. I could even see it being above PlayStation 1.
Do you think that this Donkey Kong Bonanza Direct helps Switch
Donkey Kong.
sales?
Not really.
I think
Is my negative,
I
but
think I think yes, but not like directly
yeah.
uh at like the game's launch. I think it's
Mhm.
just I think it just helps add to the library, which is
Yeah.
Switch
I
2's
think
like biggest downfall from a
mhm.
lot of people right now is just like, I have a Switch 2. What am I going to play on it? Mario Kart? What if I don't like Mario Kart? I have a Switch
Mhm.
1, you know. Uh
Yeah, it has an alternative. It has another game to play. It has another thing to try out. Like, I think that Donkey Kong as a brand, while something I care about, um, isn't as he doesn't sell as much, but maybe this is a change because people love Donkey Kong in the Mario movie, so maybe there's kids out there being like, "Papa, Mama, please buy me a Switch 2. I want to play Donkey Kong."
yeah.
Like, but I don't know if it's not gonna carry the Switch 2 in such a way that like Pokemon will, or
Mhm.
like I mean like it's I'm comparing Donkey Kong, who while very important is like honestly a B tier Nintendo character, to the highest selling franchise of all time, but um like it's not going to do the same push that a Zelda would, I think, even, or an Animal Crossing.
Yeah.
It might be on the level of a Pikmin,
Sure. Yeah.
might be on the level of a Metroid Prime 4, because even though those games are critically cool, they don't sell as well.
They don't. It yeah, I think yeah, all those games are exactly like how I think, where it's just like, as a collection they sell
Mhm.
systems, cuz then you're like, "Oh, look, there are all these games, all these high
Mhm.
quality games on here." Um and yeah, I don't know. We have the direct tomorrow. Um I think I saw it's like a 15-minute direct.
15-minute direct, only talking about Donkey Kong Bonanza.
Mhm. How do you feel about
What do you?
that?
They do these from time to time. I mean, I always want more teasers and whatnot and
Mhm.
more things. I want to know what's happening so I can get excited about things that are happening. Um, Donkey Kong Bonanza, I think, does need a little bit more, and this is to sell you, or this is to sell um um Jim Answer. I love that question. We'll get to that. We'll get to that, or
I
that
yeah,
statement.
I'll definitely I'll touch on that too. Yeah.
Donkey Kong Bonanza is in a weird place where it needs to sell more, I think, to the people who talk about games. Even though there's not a whole lot of people that like make the decisions based around other people talking about games, but a lot of like the talk I hear about Donkey Kong Bonanza is that it's good. It's an 8. Like the
Yeah.
previews was like, this is a good game, not a great game, it's a good game.
Mhm.
Um, and so far. And I think it needs to do a little bit more to that to get hype around it. I also think it needs to explain to us, anyone really, why,
Yeah,
what makes it interesting.
I personally don't think I need to see more of this game. In my head, that might just be because like I know what it is, but
Yeah.
I guess how do you progress through the game? Is it open world?
Hmm.
Um, what's up with that leak? With what appeared to be a little child Pauline?
Yeah.
Uh,
That's like what I most want from tomorrow is I want to know a little bit more about the story and what we're getting
mhm.
into,
There's
and if my fever dream of Mario being the final boss will come true.
there's rumors of this being a Mario Odyssey prequel
Mhm.
because it is a child Pauline. Um, we're gonna get back. Yeah, I do want to get back to Dinner Answers thing. But yeah, it I don't think there's a lot that I'll get from this that sells me harder on the game.
Mhm.
I don't think it'll do any bad. Like I don't think them doing this is like a mistake. Like no, don't show more of Donkey Kong. You'll spoil it, or you'll actually show that it's a bad
Yeah.
game. Um,
I could definitely do things that will make me more excited. I will say that. Like if we get 5 minutes into this direct tomorrow and they're like, and Funky Kong's here, and Lanky Kong's here, and Tiny Kong, and the whole DK crew is back. I'm like, all right, maybe I want to play the game a little bit more. Um, but because like all to my knowledge, it's just DK and there are other monkeys, and I think we've seen Cranky but like that's all we've really seen of
and
them
then
walking around the world.
we didn't see. We saw other uh Diddy Kong likes.
Yeah, the
We didn't see
spider
Diddy
monkey guys.
Kong in the trailer, but they have released a official like Diddy Kong like redesign art. So like
Yeah,
I think you can speculate and be like, yes, Diddy Kong will be here. Um
and he needs to be.
yeah. Yeah. We can do you want to touch on Dinner Master's little thing real quick?
Yeah,
Because I
absolutely.
think we could also tie this back into Donkey Kong. Dinnermancer said, I feel like Zelda is potentially in trouble, honestly, if they don't change up the setting.
Mhm.
What are your first thoughts on that?
Zelda's always interesting to me because Zelda in my brain is a series of reimagining constantly. Not in gameplay necessarily, but in little alterations to gameplay loop. You go from like even from the beginning, you go from Zelda 1, and like that is like the biggest jump in gameplay, right? Zelda 1 to Zelda 2, I mean. You go from top down to side scroller. But then you go back and you are dealing with typically action adventure games, which is always fun to tie into because we're going to talk about genres later. Let me tell you about the term action adventure.
Mm-hmm.
But they're action adventure games where you go on quests, you go collect MacGuffins, and then you get kind of powers to help you solve other MacGuffins, kind of um, do the dungeons and whatnot, and get to the end. And then Breath of the Wild happened, and then they were like, "This sold gangbusters! Like this is incredible." Um, and they're like, "Okay, let's make Tears of the Kingdom," and they just expand on that same formula in a way that like mainline Zelda, Nintendo Zelda, I'll say, um, didn't really do. They didn't really just take the same concept they just did and just expand on it a little bit in the same setting. But now they've kind of done that twice with Link's Awakening into Zelda Echoes and Breath of the Wild and Totka.
Yep.
Um,
Totka.
Totka.
Say Tears
So
of the
like
Kingdom. Tears of the Kingdom is a really
Tears of the
cool name.
Kingdom. It is a cool name. Is it as cool as what the original name was going to be? But it's a spoiler, so um, I don't know. But at the same time, yeah, it's like I want Zelda to succeed, and I think it still will succeed because I think there's enough Zelda heads in the world that are just going to keep buying games with Link in it.
Mm-hmm.
But I would like to move away from the open world formula, the Breath of the Wild formula, I guess. Um, whether or not that means like classic dungeons are back or something new, something different.
Um,
Oh no.
I also, well, I don't necessarily know if I want to move away from the open world part of it. I think thinking about like Ocarina of Time,
Hmm.
kind of like just an open world game, right?
Yeah.
Kinda. It's not as open as Breath
Hmm.
of the Wild, where you can just walk up and fight the final boss like whenever. Um, but I do think like the setting for me, I don't want a third game in this like world. I want a
Yeah.
new
We can move.
world,
Yeah.
huh?
Yeah. 100%
Yeah,
with you as like
I want a new world. Um, I think I think the games are they look nice on Switch 2. Um,
mhm.
I think they need to do something different with the graphics. Some extra bells and whistles or something would be nice. But like, yeah, for sure, I agree that like it needs a different setting. I didn't get Tears of the Kingdom. Um, and a large part of it I think was just like it didn't excite me because it didn't look different enough. Um,
Mhm.
the whole Banjo Kazooie nuts and bolts thing is cool. Um, but yeah, something about the way that game looked was just like wasn't enough for me to like need to go out and get Tears of the Kingdom. I like Breath of the Wild a lot. Um, I think they do need to change some stuff and like to bring it back to Donkey Kong Bonanza. Um, it's not the same as a Zelda because we haven't gotten a 3D Donkey Kong game in forever.
Like 99.
Um, but from what we've seen from Donkey Kong Bonanza, like there's a lot of it you can look at and be like, they haven't done this before. Like
Hmm.
we have other platformers for Nintendo, but like the way that Donkey Kong that this game looks like it plays uh is very different and unique to what Nintendo has done or to like what you would have thought Donkey Kong's next 3D platformer would have been. And I think that is a large part of the hype for this game
Hmm.
is being like, whoa, look what Donkey Kong can do. Rather than it just being like, here's DK64 again.
Yeah, and I think like that's like the more interesting part of DK Bonanza is that it's like they from what we know about development is that they approach to being like, well, what kind of platforming and adventuring can we do that makes sense for a gorilla, right? Like how do we incorporate him being a giant monkey into the game design, and like how do we make that unique instead of just being like a Mario Odyssey like
How do we
or just a
convince
3D
people
platformer.
that 100 men could not defeat one gorilla?
Hmm. Well, that gorilla's Donkey Kong. It's just not happening.
I said it before, that's how you beat the 100-man challenge in Melee. You use Donkey Kong.
You just
You
spin
just
to win.
down B.
Oh, that too. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so it'll be nice to see this game tomorrow
Hmm.
whenever I decide to wake up because it won't be for this at 6 a.m. Um, but I'm really excited to see people's reactions to what they see. Um, I think 15 minutes for one game is a long time. Uh, that last Mario Kart one we got, it's watching it, it didn't feel long, but then like going
Mhm.
back and going through everything, I was like, oh, there was a lot in here. So I'm hoping to feel the same way about this, where it's just like I hope I can go back and be like, wow, they gave us a lot of information, a lot of new info, which we don't have any info really. So
Yeah, we just update,
we know
and
the
we have
date.
like the idea that you indestructible environments.
Yeah. There's been stuff that I've seen. I'm sure this will be a topic of it too. People have played the game, talked about where the different types of surfaces have different properties.
Mm.
Like there are like soft and hard uh surfaces. You can't throw a soft surface at a hard surface and have it break, but if you throw like a soft surface, if you hit a soft surface with a soft surface, they like will destruct. Whereas
Mm.
like yeah, if you pick up a soft surface and try to break a hard surface, it doesn't work. Um
I like that.
yeah, so
I like
there's
that.
there there is stuff like that. People who had mentioned they were like who played the demo at the event were kind of like that was a thing. Um this opening level or whatever it is didn't really feel like that mattered, but it is a thing.
Mm.
So I can only imagine later on in the game it is what directs you. You know, it's kind of like I this is the puzzle. This is what I need to do to get past this area. I need this materials to break this stuff.
Mhm.
Um, whereas yeah, people before were like, I could just go anywhere.
Yeah, it's also like it's one of those things where it's like I love like the game design of it is really neat, and honestly, it's always a shame though when it comes down to being like, is it fun? Is this cool idea fun? Is it going to be fun to hunt for certain like material in
Yeah,
order to like do puzzle or attack enemy this way? And that's unfortunately like something really hard to translate into a trailer, even if it's 15 minutes. Um, cat keeps meowing. And so like I am super excited. I wanted to watch the trailer. I want it now just so I know more about the game.
you don't have
That's
long to
really it.
wait. Not one little sleep if you go to sleep.
Like, yeah, like a nice crisp 15 hours. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, that's tomorrow. Um,
Mhm. But now we're going to talk about a game that you can play right
right now,
now.
today you can play FBC Firebreak, which is the
Yeah.
new three-player first-person shooter from um Remedy,
Pepsi
the people
Man.
who play Control. Pepsi Man would be also a top-tier game to play today.
Put Pepsi Man in Smash.
Yeah, put Pepsi Man in Smash. But yeah, FBC Firebreak. I'm I'm very interested in this, and I wasn't before. It's like a very
Mhm.
recent thing. Um, FBC Firebreak is uh pitched as like a live service game that doesn't want to be live service. Um, a live service game typically it wants your time all the time.
Mhm.
It always wants you playing. You need to be playing this game or you're missing out. If you come back later, sorry. Um, this game, um, it's I have this article where basically the pitch of it is Firebreak. Remedy says it's made a control shooter for dads. It goes on to talk about middle-aged dads and how this is for them because sometimes as a middle-aged dad, you and I would know this best as middle-aged dads.
Mhm.
Sometimes
Certainly
you just
what
don't
we are.
have the time to sit down for 2, 3 hours to grind out a game. Sometimes you got work. Sometimes you got the kids to feed. They want to be played with. You got to take the dog for a walk. There's always
Hmm.
taxes you
From
got to be
experience, yeah,
filing.
always taxes.
Hmm. But this game lets you choose how long you want to play, when you want to play, and you'll still get progression for it. It does a thing where you can go into a level and you can select your clearance level, which basically is how deep into this level do you want to be able to go before it is considered a win. And I've seen people be like, you can do like low clearance and finish a run of a level of a whatever, an encounter, whatever this is, in 5 to 15 minutes, or things can go for as long as 45 minutes if you higher the clearance. Um,
Mm.
and I think that's, in theory, that sounds cool. That sounds like a great Steam Deck kind of thing.
Yeah.
Pick it up, play a little bit. I will say the part that scares me about that is, can I find two other middle-aged dads that also only have 20 minutes to play at the same exact time as I want to play?
Yeah. Are you gonna have to turn your 20-minute session into a 10-minute session?
Yeah.
Uh,
So
uh,
I think that sounds great for single player.
mhm.
Multiplayer, I don't think it works as well.
It's neat conceptually. I
Hmm.
think I like the idea that you know, games as a service and these games that become jobs is something that's very much just not for me. I tinker with a couple of them, but I'm not the person. I don't like. I'm very fickle. I like playing a lot of a variety of things. Um, I can't go back to the same game every day, like especially a game that without like a narrative resolution. Like I a game can be fun and I can enjoy playing it, but I'm like I'm gonna want to break from it because like I like other types of fun too.
Yeah.
That being said, it not screaming for my attention is always a plus. Always, I love that. I that makes me happy that it's like here's a more like maybe mentally friendly games as a service game.
It's one of
Um,
the big selling pitches for Sea of Thieves to me. Sea of
mhm.
Thieves is a game as a service kind of thing. Um, but I can go months, a year, whatever, without playing, and I haven't missed out on. I'm not weak. I don't go into the game and I'm weaker than the other people
Mm.
playing. We have all the same equipment. Everything is available to me that's available to them.
And that's like honestly, I get why like the companies are like demand your time, demand your time, demand your time. Live in this game, so you want to spend money in this game. I get it. It's really it's annoying. It's like it's like a lot of my issues with like preying upon like people's mental like synapses and like how like what gives us serotonin and whatnot. But honestly, like I want to try out FBC Firebreak. So that's one middle-aged parent that you can invite to a
Cool.
group. And I would like to again, it's on Game Pass, so it's like we can play it, we can get messed around a little bit,
Yeah, I'm excited it's on Game Pass.
and we can do a run or two, and history, video games for 20 years, 15 years now, I don't know, time's an illusion, have been hunting for Left 4 Dead.
Yeah,
And we haven't been able to fill that hole in our
even the
hearts.
people who made Left 4 Dead tried to make it again and failed
Hmm.
with Back for
And
Blood.
yeah, and like it's gonna has to work eventually. There has to eventually be a game like that fills that hole in your heart,
Hmm. And
and
also,
maybe this will be the one.
for people who don't have Game Pass, this game will also only be $40. It's not a
The
$60
constant
game,
price.
not a $70 game, not an $80 game. This is a $40 game. And they have released a roadmap
Hmm.
for adding new content. I think they have one for fall, and then one for next year. Um, but yeah, like you were saying, Kay, this is a Left 4 Dead like, where it's only 3 players instead of 4.
Hmm.
Um,
The 3-player push in modern gaming is very fun. It's very interesting to see slowly happen.
yeah, it's a weird. It's a weird number. It was something that I was going to bring up at some point where I thought about it, where it's just like, why do we keep getting these weird numbers of players?
Hmm.
What happened to 4-player games? Now we get
Yep.
3 and 5. But yeah,
Or
anyway, this
it-
is is like Left 4 Dead for 3 people. It is class based. You have loadouts
mhm.
that you choose. Um, and there is more to manage in this game than Left 4 Dead. Left 4 Dead, you manage your health and your ammo, right? And then the
Mhm.
horde of zombies. In this game, you're managing your health and your ammo, and the zombie horde. There's also like a heat and cool mechanic in this game. For and it works for both players and enemies, where you want people to be bringing things in that heat things up or cool things down, or you want to be
Mhm.
wearing equipment that is good for being in the heat or being in the cold. Um, I think I saw there are enemies when you make them hotter, they get faster, they get more aggressive. Um,
Mhm.
but if you overheat them, you kill them. Um, and then like it's the same for players, where like if you get hot, the hotter you are, you'll move faster around, but you're closer to death. Um,
Interesting.
and so
It's a
you'll
fun little mechanic.
see, I've seen it a little bit in this trailer that we're watching. There are people that are just bringing like water guns. They just like you just saw him now. He's getting doused in water. Um,
Hmm.
because it's just like a major mechanic in it where it's just like heating things up and cooling things down.
Hmm.
Um, which it's just yeah, it's another thing to manage. Um, and sometimes that's fun. To have that extra like management level. Gamers are really good at games now. They need more to do sometimes. Um, but yeah, it's
To
very
feed our ADHD brains.
yeah. It's very Left 4 Dead like. Um, I want to try to play this at some point. It's out right now. People can play it.
Right now.
Um, and it's in the Control universe from Remedy, which I believe
Yeah, I don't.
the Control universe is also the Alan Wake universe, right?
Yeah, they're all combined
Yeah, so it's
in
the
various
Remedy
forms.
verse. You're
Universe.
you're you're fighting the Hiss, which is the name of like the enemies. They've got some unique, cool enemies in this game. Um, the most like visible one that we've seen, which is what this extended play look is getting to, is Sticky Ricky,
Yeah, Sticky
which is just
Ricky.
like a sticky note monster. You saw some sticky notes that the players were being attacked with earlier. Their screens were
Mhm.
getting covered in sticky notes. Um, and that's cool. That's interesting. I do think it's one of those things where it's like it'll be really fun and cool and funny the first time you die from sticky notes,
Yeah.
and then each time after that it just becomes less novel. It just
Hmm.
becomes a it just becomes another enemy. It's an attack.
Yeah, it's certainly like gimmicky in a fun way,
Yeah.
but like yeah, like all and like everything that you're exposed to a billion times over, like it's gonna have diminishing returns.
Yeah, cuz
Um,
I do
and but
believe in this game
Mhm.
you'll want to be returning to missions you've already done to get new resources for new stuff or whatnot, you know.
Mhm.
This is gross what I'm looking at now, popping these
Yeah,
weird little egg
yeah.
things.
Control has a lot of grossness, especially when you get to the lower levels in it.
I see.
That's really fun. Like I'm excited in part because like I love Control so much. I don't think it needs a game like this, but that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
Like
It
I
could be
love
this
Control so much.
conversation.
I like the world building. It's just like Remedy need like every company needs an infinite money glitch nowadays, and which this doesn't seem to be as like preying on you as a lot of them
Yeah.
do. But like all these companies are searching for that. They're like, where can we reuse assets we already have? Um, and where can we get people to spend money on our games consistently so that we can fund our other stuff? Um, so I get why games like this happen, and also there could just be a bunch of people like on the B team at Remedy that like while they're making Alan Wake 2 DLC, they're like, all right, you guys mess around with this,
Yeah.
and like they're like, oh, we found a fun thing. So it's not inherently like as cynical as I make it. Um, but um, the best part of Control, other than like looping your powers together in interesting ways, is like the fascinating world building story, and not even necessarily like the inherent narrative, just like the world building around it. Uh, and does a multiplayer, fast paced Left 4 Dead like give you that opportunity for world building? I don't really know, but I'm could be pleasantly surprised.
I I I didn't get excited for this game until very recently, but my first thoughts were like, why do they need to do this? Why did they
Mhm.
do this? This is a weird place for Remedy to push into. Um,
Mhm.
but I think you're right. It seems like it's just like, hey, we had this stuff. We had some people working on something.
Mhm.
Uh, they were messing around, and they kind of made something that was fun. So we just kind of like pushed forward with that, you know, which is something
Yeah.
that I think is normal for companies to do. There's always
Hmm.
people like just messing around, trying to find their next thing. And like you mentioned, like companies looking for like ways to repurpose assets and just like to make a little more money to fund their next thing. Remedy is a company that like I want them to make their next thing.
Yeah. 100%.
And then especially like I think it's been like pretty public that like they have not made the amount of money uh
Hmm.
that they needed to or that they should have with how acclaimed their last two games have been. Like Alan Wake 2 and Control were like Game of the Year nominees.
Hmm.
Control might have even won a bunch of Game of the Year stuff. Alan Wake won some Game of the Year awards. Um, but they just didn't like that didn't translate into as many sales as they needed it to be.
Yeah, and let's like it's unfortunate because these are very good games and they're very interesting games, maybe more than they are great. Like Control, I would like I'm is it I love Control so much. It's gameplay wise, it's maybe like an 8 out of 10. It doesn't need to be. I wouldn't consider it much more than that, but like the experience of Control is sick. Um and Alan Wake 1 is a very like kind of a more like novel experience at the time, survival horror, flashlight mechanic, and also but like I like they're like Artor games in theory. They're big budget Artor games. They're
Mm-hmm.
games that have a vision. They go for that vision. They know what that vision is. They're going to be weird and wacky. They're going to be Twin Peaks like. They're going to be David Lynch like in a little ways. Um, but they're still big budget, and there's always an interesting like where is that intersection going to leave you sales wise? Like where are the people who want just like a AAA experience, and where are the people who want kind of like a mindfuck adventure? Like where does that meet, and how much money do we actually get from that?
Hopefully they got a good deal with Game Pass. Uh,
Yeah.
I feel like just getting that on Game Pass has to be like a huge bump for them. Uh, I could see this game doing fairly well in like
Mhm.
the streamer world,
Mhm.
at least for like a week.
Yeah.
Um,
People shouting "Sticky Ricky" and Panic for
I
clip
think
engagements.
it has the name behind it and the look and like the uniqueness of the world to get a good viewing experience for people, along
Mhm.
with it being 3 players, so all your favorite streamers can get together and die to sticky notes over and over and rage about sticky notes and whatnot. Um, and yeah, I don't know. I'm hoping that that translates to more sales for them, so that they can make whatever they want to make next.
Mhm. I do too, because I want Remedy to succeed. I mean, every company to succeed in theory.
Mm,
I want these people to still be employed, like the worker bees.
sure.
Um, but like Remedy is a little bit more near and dear to my heart because of how much I enjoyed uh, Control
Yeah.
and Alan Wake 1, and will enjoy Alan Wake 2 when I get to it. I'm part of the problem.
I'm with you though, actually. I really want to play Alan Wake 2. I haven't.
Mhm.
Really, really want to play that though.
Gotta dissect why that is one day.
One day, maybe. But yeah, I don't
Um,
know. That's about all I want to say. I'll play this at some point. Maybe Saturday.
hopefully next week we can come down and be like, hey, um, this is what we thought about FGC,
Yeah,
FBC. I can't
FBC.
speak.
What do you think about the FGC? No, I don't want to get into that. You on to a little bit with CEO, but
Yeah, in the pre show.
in the pre-show, let's move on from FBC break.
Hmm.
It's funny. We've gone from something that we could see tomorrow to something you could see right now to previews of things that you saw
Hmm.
yesterday that you can't see until sometime in the future. Okay, you're gonna
Yeah,
talk about that's you're gonna talk about your next fest experience.
yeah. Steam Next Fest. We talked about it a little bit last week. It just rules. It comes down every like 3 months or whatever have you, and it's like, here are video games coming up of all shapes and sizes,
Mm-hmm.
and here are demos for all of them, little slices, vertical slices, as one might say, um, and like to show off their game and their mechanics, their bones, and what have you. I played 30
How are
demos.
those 30 bones?
Those 30 bones were generally good. It was 30 good bones. There were bad bones in there.
Okay.
There were games that I was like, all right, I get the gimmick, and it's just not for me. There are games where I'm like, this needs a little bit more in the kitchen. Maybe putting a demo out for it right now wasn't the greatest
Idea.
like move. Like maybe you should have like waited a little bit to get like general glitchiness, general bugginess
Next Fest happens like
out of
every
the
two
way.
months, so like you wouldn't have had
Yeah.
too much time to get it out there.
Um. So yeah, I mean, like a wide variety of opinions on a lot of games.
What were some of your
That being said,
favorites?
some of my favorites and some of the weirder ones. The 1000 Deaths was a game that I played, which was a perspective platformer that used a lot of like, when walking up wall, you are on wall gravity, and but you exist on that gravity in a three-dimensional space, kind of. But then like there will be little curves that if you walked over those, then you would switch your gravity perspective.
Was this the
Um,
one that you were talking about that was VVVVVVV like?
um,
And then
it's
rescinded that and you were like, "No, it's not."
yeah. Because it uses a lot of gravity, a lot of like perspective switching. It also is interesting where like it has a very vapor wave art style. Everyone looks really weird. Everything
Oh,
looks
hold on.
hyper pink and blue. I'm holding. I'm awning. Chris, where'd you go? I'm gonna just kill time now while Chris is dealing what he's dealing with, and just talk about how video games are cool. Playing video games is cool, and you should find time to play games that are unique and weird and expand your gaming horizons. Because there's a lot of really good stuff out there that isn't necessarily like up your cup of tea from the get-go, and maybe you see Next Fest in general is a great time, so 2-3 months from now, to check out games that like are genres you normally wouldn't play, mess around with them a little bit. They don't take more than like 30 minutes
My
of your
cat's trying to
time.
escape. Talk about your Next Fest stuff. Hold on. I gotta get her
No, I
back
got
in.
it.
She escaped once.
Got it. I'm grandstanding. Don't worry about it. I got it. Um, and like playing these games is like such a 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour, depending on the type of game. And like it helps like really mess with your palate and really advance your palate. Um, because you only eat third person action adventure games you made by PlayStation your whole life. That's neat, cool. Um, but at the same time, like I think you do yourself a little bit of a disservice if you don't try out some more experimental stuff, more fun genres, more weird genres, more mm, more like ones that make you think more, ones that make you think less, one that tests the reflexes within reason, because of course like some people can't mechanically play certain things. Or like certain like I know a lot of people who like the the this rigidness of like certain like souls likes and stuff like that are difficult um to really do with your motors and whatnot, your hands. Um and but just again, it doesn't cost anything to try out one of these demos. And I tried out 30 of them. So I don't have control to be able to see you guys to make you guys see like the demos and whatnot. And Chris abandoned us. So now you just all in the theater of the mind. Um my standout was like I think I talked a little bit last week about Blood Grounds. It's a really good, really fun tactics game with beautiful pixel art that uses a lot of sanity mechanics from Darkest Dungeon in a Coliseum like tactics with like magic and stuff like that. It was really good. I could see myself losing hours. I played 72 minutes of the demo. Um, and I think you like turn-based games. You think you really like it. You back, Chris?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, see you physically. I who knows if the chat liked it or not, but I talked a lot about how expanding your palette and how Steam Next Fest is really good for like trying out game genres you might not normally like.
It is
And
really good about that. That is one of the things that I liked about it when I've
Mhm,
done it is just finding new stuff that I don't have to like dedicate a lot of time to or
mhm.
do a lot of research into beforehand or pay any money for and can just be like I'm I'll play this dumb thing for 10 minutes. Okay.
Yeah, and like it's like it really doesn't cost anything. It costs time. 30 minutes. You spend 30 minutes doing nonsense, doom scrolling. Spend it on playing a little weird game that might make you might be thinking about years in advance, like building relationships. Where I'm going to always be thinking about being a house, platforming around, talking to other houses, trying to date them. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's goofy. It's goofy.
Uh,
Um,
that demo was 20 minutes long.
we do want to take a look at some of these popular games from the
Hmm.
Next Fest
Yeah.
that are here. So we've got, I don't know, this might be big enough. Steam Next Fest, the 50 most played demos of the event. I don't know if this is ordered. Oh yeah, it is. Free to explore the ties below, ordered by number of unique players during the week-long event. Um,
Mhm.
that's crazy to me. What is Vindictus Defying Fate? It
Yeah,
it was the number one played.
yeah, and I didn't play it, so I don't really have a lot to be able to speak about it. Um, but it has that tried and true moniker of being a Souls
It
like.
does. It has the
Um,
Souls-like tag right here.
um, but like a lot of the games that you see do really well are going to typically be like these like very polished looking double A um action adventures. And so like I think you go through a couple of them and it's going to be either those or FPSs, like co-op
I,
FPSs.
I there are some on here so far that I know.
Mhm.
Dinnermancer played the original Vindictus. It wasn't a Souls-like. Well, Defying
Neat.
Fate, action RPG, Souls-like, online co-op. Um, Wildgate, I've been seeing a lot of. It's on my wish list. Um, Dead as Disco is one that you played that I've
Played
seen
last night.
a lot of people play.
Mhm.
Solo leveling, I think is, it's the anime, so people are gonna play the multiplayer solo leveling. Um,
Yeah.
this game's Pioneer, not Pioneer,
Pioneer.
Pioneer.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right. You're right.
Um, I just want to point that out real quick. Some other games, I know I'm Not Human. I saw that heading into this. Um, Starlight Revolver is a silly name.
Yeah, I'm excited about playing that one. I watched the trailer for that. I didn't actually play it. I just wasn't in the mood to play
Gotcha.
like um when I remembered that it had a demo last night and I was like, I got
Ah,
time for like two or three demos. I just chose Dead as Disco and I chose Possessor
yeah.
with the S in parentheses, the Hyperlife Drifter guys game.
So I Escape from Dukov or Dukov. I've seen this around for a
Yeah,
bit. Ball Pit
fun little silly parody game.
Ball Pit was new. The new Devolver game, action roguelike bullet hell slash breakout ish kind of game. Um, Starbirds is a bigger name that I've seen. Dispatch.
Dispatch rules. Can't
Mm-hmm.
wait.
Ratatan, spiritual successor to Patapon.
Which is fun because it's coming out in July when Patapon 1 and 2 remastered come out. So, you get all of your little musical send little guys to die video games out at the same
You
time.
get all your Ada likes, your Patapon and
Yeah.
your Ratatan.
Rata, 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 ta.
Um,
I'm bad at the game.
but yeah, I am seeing a lot of like stuff that I like. Clover Pit was kind of one that I didn't know before. Kind of
Hmm.
took my timeline at least by storm. Um, for being a weird looking gambling people. I'm not kidding when I say this. People called it a Balatro like.
They're going to have fun in this next segment.
Ninja Gaiden Ragebound. This is of the two Ninja Gaiden games coming out. I'm more excited about this one. You can still install the demo too. The 2D Ninja Gaiden,
Yeah,
Neonibus 2,
more interesting
Moonlighter
to me as
2,
well.
Date Everything. That's
I'm excited. But I'm
yeah,
going to buy it today.
yeah. Abyssus. Oh, that was that brine like, right?
Yeah, Brian,
The
like that
brine
was
like
fun.
shooter.
That's a tongue in cheek title, but
Yeah, they're
I'm for it.
being goofy with that one. But yeah, there's a lot of the top 50 games are games
Hmm.
that I would expect to be here. Um, Morbid Metal looks cool. Baby Steps
Hmm.
is another Devolver game. It's Mina the Hollower. Thank God that's on here. I was looking for that. It's this list is good. It has a lot of stuff, like I said, that like I know was gonna be good. That I already knew about before.
Hmm.
What this top 50 list doesn't do that like I saw more of during the Next Fest event, which I didn't really get to play anything at all. It's just like I was able to explore and just find, like you said, like just random
Hmm.
stuff that I never would have even looked into beforehand. Um,
No, 100%. I'm right there with you.
yeah,
I was just like scrolling down.
most of this list is stuff where I'm like,
Hmm.
yeah, I'm deep into games and games media. I know a lot of
Hmm.
these, and I expect like these don't surprise me that these were top demos. A lot of them. Um, there's not too many on here where I'm like, oh, that's really cool. The one that I would say is what I talked about was Clover Pit. Clover Pit was the one where
Hmm.
uh didn't know what it was, came out of nowhere for me, and I saw a whole lot of it. But that's cool. Like if I click Clover Pit, when is it coming out? 2025. That's it.
There you
That's what we get.
go. One of the other ones I just want to highlight real quick is Absolem.
Okay.
I played Absolem. It's a beat 'em up game. It's a roguelike game. It's a co-op game. You can play local. You can play online co-op, and it's just like it was really fun. It mechanically felt sharp. It felt fluid. It was the art style is very pretty, and but it is very much of like you have your little roguelike Slay the Spire map with your directions and whatnot.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And you progress and you play the game. You beat things up. You get upgrades to certain attacks. You get different special attacks. It was just really fun, and it has like a really cool art style, I think.
I saw
And I'm
the .emu logo. That's a
hmm
they've been hot right now.
hmm
This
um
art style, I like that frog guy first of all, or whatever that guy was.
yeah.
Art style is very Darkest Dungeon.
hmm It has like it's like Dark Dungeon a little bit
Mm-hmm,
with this for like the CGI trailer. Like when you get into the gameplay, it still has that like a little bit of Darkest Dungeon like shading,
mm-hmm.
but I think everything looks a little bit more like hand drawn maybe a little bit more um I don't know, like cartoony in a certain sense.
Okay.
Um maybe anime inspired, but like not like maybe like a Western anime inspired type thing going on. But no, the game rules. I'm excited to play more. I played like a couple runs of it, and then I was really mad that like time was running out, and I wasn't gonna have time to play like a run with somebody else to see how like the co-op shined.
I see. You did say you were saying how with the games that you were playing, there
Mhm.
were some where you just like didn't need to finish. You saw what you
Mhm.
saw what you saw. That was the game. You didn't need to finish the demo. And then you said there were some where you were upset when the demo was over because you were like, "Man, I'm having a good time. I really wish I could have kept going."
Yeah, yeah. Solemn is definitely one of those. Um, and there were a couple of like more like kind of platformy, narrative based ones that I was like, oh man, I want to get more into like what this game's about, like what the plot's happening.
Yeah.
Or like Dispatch was one. I was mad because I'm like, I want to get into the meat of this game. I was like, it. The story looks like it's gonna be really fun, and I haven't had a good Telltale like in a long while. I feel.
No, this Dispatch is the best looking Telltale like
Mhm.
it looks better than any
Mhm.
Telltale game.
For sure.
This also I have it on the screen here. This game uh calls itself a rogue 'em up.
Oh,
So we're just
a rogue 'em up.
video games have just been making up words, making up genres
Hmm.
just to partially to be funny and then also to be like it's like I get what they're saying. It's a rogue like beat 'em up. Sure.
Hmm.
I get it. Um game com you know, when a game company says something like that where it's like I think it's so dumb, but it seems like they probably also know it's dumb, I'm for it.
Hmm.
I'm like, all right.
Yeah, for sure. It's not just like an attempt at being viral. It's just like you're kind of poking fun of yourself.
Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about Steam Next Fest?
No, not really.
Next one, I
I got a
believe.
lot of my thoughts in.
Okay, I believe the next one should be in 2 months. I believe that's the
Mm-hmm.
schedule they're on, every 2 months. Um, so it would be August. August, yeah, I think that sounds right. And then October. Maybe it's 3 months. I don't know. I could be crazy, but
It will come out when it comes out.
it'll come out. Um,
It's on Blizzard time.
uh, Steam time. Steam time. Steam time's a little different. Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
all right. Next our yeah. So I've been saying it all show. I think we've been saying it just as bits for a while.
Yeah.
Just calling things likes. Um, just making up stuff. Like what are some likes? I said I called FBC a Left 4 Dead like. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Last week I called Dono's adventure Yoshi's Island like.
yes, a Yoshi's Island like. Now we're gonna be talking about for a little bit. We're gonna talk about what the heck are video games and people doing with genres, likes, and clones.
Mm-hmm.
What makes something a like? What makes something a clone? Um, it's kind of be this weird freeform topic we have going on, but um, where do we want to start? I guess I'll start. It's the big one right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Souls likes,
Mm-hmm.
right? So let me bring up this graphic that I think I have.
You
Um,
made it today. I hope you still have it.
I I did. Hold on. All right. So, pew, 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 pew. We have this little picture I made real quick. A bunch of Souls likes. These games are classified as Souls likes. We have a lot of twos in here. Mortal Shell 2, Code Vein 2, The Surge 2, Blasphemous 2, Remnant 2, which to me indicates that they're doing well.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that just everyone is making Souls likes, it's that everyone's making Souls likes and sequels for their Souls likes. And then we also have Tunic and Another Crab's Treasure on here. And I picked these games for this graphic because it kind of shows, again, one, that they're sequels, and that they don't have to be the same look or vibe. They can be in different perspectives. Blasphemous 2 is talked about as a Souls like, and it's 2D.
Mm-hmm.
Remnant 2 is talked about being a Souls like, and it's a third person shooter. Um, Another Crab's Treasure is very just colorful, goofy, cartoony, where you see a lot of Souls likes very dark and
Mm-hmm.
ominous and evil, dingy, whatever. And then Tunic, which is a different perspective. It's a isometric, and it's colorful and cartoony looking. Um, so what makes a Souls like?
Yeah. I would say that in theory that it comes down to the currency XP system, dying, and you losing that progression, and then you having to go back and get that progression back, more or less. That's like, I think, the core of it in theory. I think a lot of people would argue that there are a couple other mechanics, whether it's like dodge rolls or parrying or the obfuscation of the narrative,
Mm-hmm.
are very important to Souls as well. Um, but I think it really comes down to like I guess like I also said the exploration and like the way that like the game is kind of like put together, um, and while also generally being an action adventure game
Yeah,
for
and
the most part.
um, I think I think all these games do have that like XP currency system
Mm,
where you defeat enemies, you get whatever the equivalent to the souls are. If you die, you drop all your souls in that spot. You got to go back and collect them. When you do have them collected, you turn those in for levels or upgrades and whatnot.
mm-hmm,
And and actually, Dinner Mentor in chat again said Tunic is clearly inspired by Zelda. Um, Tunic, after it came out and as it was, being previewed, the way that I kept hearing this described was a Zelda Souls like, where it very much has its major inspirations in Zelda, classic Zelda. That's the whole thing it has going on with like the manual thing that it does, its combat system, its its overworld map is a little like an old top-down Zelda game. Um I think its map lends itself to what a lot of Souls like games tend to say they are like. Um its combat is difficult like Souls like games, I guess. And then yeah, and then it has that system of your currency, and then also when you go and heal and save, all the enemies come back. Um I I it's hard to talk about because it's weird, but um it's not new where games are categorizing new genres named after games that have already happened, like games that have already come
mm-hmm,
out. For example, Metroidvania. Metroidvania is a genre of game that is just referencing Metroid and Castlevania, right? And
mm-hmm.
like there's appears to be a strict set of rules to what makes a game a Metroidvania. Um like if uh if you played Castlevania or Metroid when those games came out, what genre would you call them?
Yeah, and like specifically, we probably break it down to it being like Super Metroid and like not Symphony of Night, well, Rondo, but like because getting nuanced here, but Castlevania 1 and Metroid 1 are very much like less of what we consider Metroidvania than than they were.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, so like you were like, oh, I played an act like a platformer. Like Metroid is like what? I played a Mega Man. Like no, you played a platformer. Um, you played a platformer, and same with Castlevania. You're like, oh, I played a platformer, and then as time went on, um, they're like, oh, like they're 2D platformers with puzzle mechanics, or like progression that isn't inherently linear. um and start adding modifiers like backtracking, like you now like you gain an ability that allows you to do this and this and this, and like now here's map. But yeah, back then you're like, I played a 2D platformer
Yeah.
where I shot things
Yeah, it was a
or
2D
whipped things.
platformer and had a really big map and I could go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's like it's a little interesting and hard and confusing to talk about um where a genre tag is real it's just a name for a mechanic or collection of mechanics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when you call something an RPG, like you're talking about like the way that your character is, leveling up with its varied stats, um, maybe different classes or whatnot. Um, and then you can branch off of that. You can have an action RPG.
Mm-hmm.
You can have like a turn-based RPG, classic RPG, whatever. Um,
Ooh, Chris.
mm,
Now I'm going to be right back. You have to grandstand. 1 second.
okay. And so with games like Souls likes or also uh rogue likes slash lights, um, it's just like they're just referencing very specific mechanics in the game that are reminiscent of another game that either did it first or had done it best or whatever. Um, it starts in my mind getting uh, a little convoluted and a little reckless and over the top when we just start calling everything a Souls like. Um, and I had mentioned Metroidvanias have like a distinct like set of rules of like what makes it
Aye.
a
I'm back.
okay, what makes it a Metroidvania. Rogue likes slash lights have like a distinct set of mechanics that that define it. I think Souls likes just have a wider breadth of like things to choose from. Like a roguelike is a game where you die and you start over, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
Roguelite is where you have like that progression where you lose, you start back at the beginning, but you have gained something to help your progress, to help you more easily progress farther, whether it be levels or items or shortcuts or whatever. Um, and like that's basically all I need to describe what a roguelike is. And Souls likes, we talked about it. We listed off like a number of things. It's like it has to do with like the difficulty of it, the currency and leveling up system. There's it just seems like people aren't as sure what makes a game a Souls like. And that's why everything coming out just says it's a Souls like.
Mm-hmm. Which is,
Um
I think, is fascinating because like you wouldn't say like this is a narrative, like this is in a Souls like in such a way that the narrative reminds me of Dark Souls. Like you like you're right. That's too much words. So now
yeah.
you say it's a Souls like,
Yeah.
or it's like a experience Souls like.
Yeah.
Um, you just have to keep adding modifiers to really describe what you're talking about nowadays.
Mhm. And yeah, I don't know. I think if I had to boil down Souls likes
Mm-hmm.
to a specific like like one thing, kind of like a roguelike, it would be the currency level up combo system.
Mm-hmm.
But then also, all, why why is Mortal Shell 2 a Souls like and not a Souls clone?
Mm-hmm.
Why do we not have Souls clones? Why do we have Souls likes? Because if, the famous, you know, uncultured take on clones is the Smash clones, right?
Mm-hmm.
People still call them Smash clones. We're, civilized, cultured individuals here who know that these are platform fighters.
Mm-hmm.
But just looking at these pictures, you can very easily see that these games are are similar. These are the same types of games. Um, the perspective is all the same. You have characters on screens with percentages, and lives and platforms. Um, if you looked at those last games, if you looked
Mm-hmm.
at Code Vein next to uh, Another Crab's Treasure, next to Blasphemous, next to Tunic, you can't look at those games. You can't look at stills of those games and be like, ah, yes, I know exactly what this is. Um, and I can't tell if that's why those are Souls likes and people consider these Smash clones is because you can look at all of them and be like Smash Brothers.
Yeah, but like I think Cinemaster said in the chat. I think it's a very astute point. I think it's pretty good. Is that like they're I'm trying to use my like Lies of P
Mm-hmm.
and Bloodborne or whatever, right? Have a lot of similarities, especially in the set and like kind of in this like they're both dark. They're both like mechanically similar, but you can look at them and kind of being like, well, that's not the same game, right? Like that's not net like that's not it might not have one for one the same mechanics. Um they're heavily inspired by, and I think the clone term really comes down to like when like oh the core everything about this game is exactly or is like is everything I need to know about it is that it's like Smash Brothers. Like
Mm-hmm.
is it's that it's a clone of Smash Brothers, or like a Pokemon clone. Like every Mon game that's not Pokemon is like Pokemon, right? It's a Poke clone. Like because people don't you know interact with other games, and I think it. Lastly, sorry, I'm like rambling multi points together.
Mm-mm.
Is that something like Smash Brothers and something like um Pokemon has such a threat like a grasp on that particular genre. Um Whereas there are other action adventure games that people associate stuff like Dark Souls, Demon Souls, even Bloodborne is the same company, but it's like people might be like, "Ah, that's like a Souls like because it also added this and this to the formula of Souls like." So like we don't call things Dark Souls clones or Demon Souls clones because now there's 10 different things that we associate other than just like I guess the easy way you would say like a platform fighter, a Smash clone is that like there's a platform and there's percentages and that's it. That's two things that you need kind of.
For,
Um I'm being heavily reductive to it, but uh like I think that there is like an argument to be said about like the amount of mechanics that people see when they look at a still of both PlayStation Battle All Stars and Super Smash Brothers Nickelodeon Fighters is a lot. There's a lot less diversity in things that you can, the mechanics that you can witness than there is with something that is an amalgamation of multiple games now called Souls likes.
I think, if I'm gonna play devil's advocate and make the argument for, you know, I guess the Smash clones, right, is
Mm-hmm.
um if you have played Dark Souls,
Mm-hmm.
or well, I'll start here. If you've played Smash Brothers, you know how to play these 4 games on screen right now. If you've played Smash Brothers, you know what you can jump into Rivals of Aether, Brawl Out, Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl, and Multiverses and be like, I know what's going on. I know how to play this. If you've played Dark Souls, you know how to play Mortal Shell. You know how to play Surge. You know how to play Lords of the Fallen, right?
Yeah. If you know how to play Super Mario 64, you know how to play
Astrobot.
Astrobot.
I think one. I just want to be stupid and say that. I think one of the aspects for these being Smash clones, rather than, they're platform fighters. We know that. That's what they're called. There's enough of them. They're platform fighters. But I think the reason why they've been called Smash clones for so long and so often is because, like you said, with like Pokemon, like when you think of a genre, there's one game. What was a platform fighter before Smash Bros? Smash Bros was the platform fighter. So then
there's a silly argument for Mario Bros singular.
I'm not gonna help you make that argument.
There's platforms, and there's you try to make the other person die before you do, or whatever have you.
Mario Bros, the original platform fighter. But God, that threw me.
I'm sorry.
But yeah, so yeah, I think, I guess that's what I'm saying is, like, with all 4 of these games, you can very easily look at Smash Bros. And like you can put Smash Bros. Next to these and be like, yep, this fits in. Whereas with Souls-likes, the devil's advocate answer I just gave is like, if you've played Dark Souls, you know how to play Mortal Shell, etc. If you've played Dark Souls, you don't necessarily know how to play Tunic, or I guess there are other games that just aren't, that you can't say like are directly just a Dark Souls clone. Just like, with, like we mentioned, Astrobot, you can't call Astrobot a 3D Mario like, because there are so many 3D platformers that are so varied and different. It is,
but you
I'll say
call Super Meat Boy a new Super Mario Bros 3D like, or Super Mario Bros 3D.
I mean, they literally put a warp pipe in that trailer. Didn't use it, which was weird.
Nope.
The warp pipe came out of the ground and Meat Boy fell from the sky, from what I remember in that trailer. But to, these have been called clones. We know them as platform fighters. What about these?
Yeah.
You'll see it on screen in a second.
Oh, I'm behind. I'm behind.
These are, you could call them Metroidvanias, right? Some people might call them Hollow-likes.
Some people being you.
Because of how closely these resemble Hollow Knight. And then some people would probably call these Hollow Knight clones.
Yeah.
I purposely did this where I grabbed 4 images that look very, very, very similar. Um, and it's it's weird because this territory with these games now goes beyond mechanics and goes right to the art style and direction. Um,
Yeah.
and I don't like Souls likes can have that aspect of looking and having the same tone as Dark Souls. Um, but there are plenty that don't. And I think this is where we differentiate from these being Metroidvanias to people calling them Hollow Knight clones, is because it's not just the mechanics, it's specifically you look like Hollow Knight.
Yeah. I mean, like, so, like, I mean, the argument is there, and I don't hate the argument. And I think that I was gonna make this as a bit earlier, and I'm gonna continue down this bit. It can be maybe just as simple as the mouthfeel of like hollow like compared to hollow clones.
Sure,
Smash like doesn't sound as fun to say as
as a
Smash
Smash clone.
clone.
My
Um,
my thought on that is when people call something a clone is derogatory.
that's also very true. That's
I
also
I
fair.
think it's just like a derogatory thing when people are like, "Oh, this is just another Smash clone." Oh,
Hmm.
this is another Hades clone, which is another thing that
Hmm.
like people are saying a lot recently, which I don't have images for that. A lot of Hades clones
Yeah,
coming out.
Vampire Survivor likes
Mm-hmm.
Survivors likes or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Um, the thing about clones is I think it is derogatory when they say it. Um, but there are good clones.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think the term clone and means like in theory a lesser replication.
Mm-hmm.
Um or just a replication in general. Um but it's typically used to mean lesser because like you're comparing it to something typically of like no one uses like says something as a oh I got a like a Glover clone. Like no one's out there comparing like games to bad versions of what they did before or whatever.
We do
Um
need Glover clones.
yeah. And like in theory we need many of them. Um but like I derailed myself by thinking about Glover too much. Was he a hand with a
We've all
ball?
been there.
Um and like all genres in the grand scheme of things are there to exist for are to help you get to something similar to something you played before. Um and the clones and the likes are, as you said, I think I'm getting to agree with you, the positive mostly and negative mostly, differentiating between like hyper specific mechanics. Because you can't just call a game an action adventure anymore. If you sell a game, they're like, this is our new action adventure game, and that's all you give, I'm like, what the heck does that mean?
Yeah.
Does that mean Legend of Zelda? Does that mean like Uncharted? Like, what does that mean? So now you have to, because of how there's a whole larger discussion about how the internet exists and how like we make our circles even smaller and our stuff like that. Like you're now looking for a game specifically like Dark Souls. You're looking for a game specifically like Smash Brothers, and then we just go, oh, it's a Smash clone, meaning like, maybe don't check it out, or it's a Smash like, maybe going like, ah, like you don't hear it as much, but like I'm sure some people are like Rivals of Aether 2 because it has quality in theory. Is they're calling it a Smash like?
Which is also, I think, where just like the defense now comes in of being like, no, it's a platform fighter, is because
Yeah.
it's not being derogatory. It's like, which is,
Mhm.
again, platform fighter. It's it's a weird thing that has happened in, a world where we are just calling things likes,
Mhm.
where, souls like, rogue like, um, and then for this genre tag to get an actual like defined name of platform
Mhm.
fighter rather than smash like.
Part of that might come down to time, like because like you see every once in a while. Like I remember there was an article I remember reading about the Vampire Survivors likes and clones. A lot of them, you do hear clones again still with those. Um, is that we like you just need a new genre name. Like you should call them bullet heavens. Is like a term that which is still, it's a reference to another genre, but still,
It's a yeah.
um, it's a new name like for a genre that is relatively budding, and maybe in 10 years we'll call them all bullet heavens, or maybe just because of how language exists and because of Souls likes having that name, everything is now a like positive.
And that was
Um,
actually a point or like a question I was going to ask is like 10 years from now,
mhm.
are we still calling things souls likes, or is there a name for the mechanic that we now call it? Like,
Mhm.
and I don't think we
I
do.
don't I don't think we do either, and I think like as your top of the topic for you, like you talking about like what is a Souls like is varied depending on what aspect of it you are taking from it.
Yeah.
Whereas honestly, a lot of the Hollow Knight likes are just Metroidvanias with Souls-like mechanics in
Mm-hmm.
theory. Bonfire RPGs. That's a good guess, Dinnermancer. I like it. Good
That's not bad.
name.
That's not bad.
Not
That's
bad
better
at
than
all.
anything I would have been able to come up with for sure. The
Yeah,
Bonfire
you got to go to
RPG.
your little bonfire.
Oh, it's a bonfire
Um,
RPG with
that's a bonfire
it's a
RPG. You're like,
bonfire. This one is bonfire. Um I wanted to bring up the uh Souls like tag
mm-hmm,
on Steam and show this off real quick. Um because I think it's dumb. Um
mm-hmm,
Souls like as a term, I'm starting to grasp more and be more okay with. I think its biggest drawback is just how often it's used right now, how many games are coming out
mm-hmm,
called Souls likes. And it was the same thing with roguelikes. There was a billion roguelikes coming out at one point, and
mm-hmm,
people were like overwhelmed with this new tag. And now there are still tons of roguelikes coming out. There are Souls like roguelikes. I think Remnant is a Souls like
yeah,
roguelike. Um,
mm-hmm,
but people aren't as upset with calling things roguelikes anymore because it's just become so normal. And like maybe we get there with Souls likes. Um, but
but yeah, we also we also still in that weird thing where like we still differentiate, or some people try to differentiate between a like and a light, and I think that's a losing battle. I think you we just start to get rid of light.
I thought about talking about that briefly where for a while there was that like, is this a rogue like or a rogue light? And I think that has dissipated into just calling
Mm-hmm,
thing, for the most part at least, just calling thing roguelikes.
mm-hmm,
Um, there is a very specific difference between what people call a
mm-hmm.
rogue like versus a light. I just think people are sick of trying to talk about that difference. And
Yeah, and every single game, like when you talk about roguelikes, that we talk about are like, no, they're all technically roguelites for the most part. Like Hades is a roguelite.
Yeah.
Like all the deck building rogue are roguelites. All the deck, they're all like Slay the Spires or whatever are roguelites. Because they have meta progression.
Mm-hmm.
Dead Cells has meta progression. All these things that people like are like, oh, it's a roguelike. I'm like, we're all wrong, but it's okay. We just have to change the fucking word to
Yeah.
mean a broader umbrella.
So I've got the tag up here. If I need to make it bigger, someone in chat can tell me. I think this size might be okay, but like two of the games that I put on my list are on here. For Nine Souls was a Hollow like or a Hollow Knight clone. It's also in here for a Souls like. It's very good. It's a very good game. So it's not just a Hollow clone. Tunic is in here.
Yeah.
Path of Exile.
That's what I was laughing about. Path of Exile being in here doesn't make any gosh darn sense.
There's
like,
more
truly
that I think is dumb that are in this section.
Yeah.
Expedition 33.
It's just not.
Is it because it has a parry?
Yeah.
Is that the Souls
parrying and dodging or mechanics is dark narratively?
Is that the Souls
It's not what that is.
No, Dinnerman's right. Path of Exile is a Diablo clone. Right? It's a Diablo clone.
In the same way that Grim Dawn is, and not V Rising. Titan Quest. There we go. Diablo clone.
Torchlight was a Diablo clone.
There we go.
But it looked very different. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. I don't understand, like, this is when the whole Souls-like thing gets silly to me, is when we're like the parts of the Souls games that were, because like parrying and like the dodge roll system is a big part of Dark Souls and those games, not what I consider to be Souls-like. I don't know enough about Wuthering Waves. It doesn't look like a Souls-like to me. Maybe it is. I don't know.
I know it's a gacha game.
Oh, Hollow Knight. Bet you didn't know Hollow Knight was also a Souls-like. It is, though, right? It's a Souls-like.
It's got the mechanic. It's got the experience mechanics.
It has the bonfire with the benches, right? Maybe you did think of Hollow Knight as a Souls-like. I didn't. Because it's Metroidvania to me. But I guess like you can have a Souls-like Metroidvania. There were some other things I saw on here before, which aren't popping up immediately right now, but Dead Cells was in here. Dead Cells is one of my favorite. Oh, here it is. One of my favorite roguelikes. Not.
And like some of these just have to be on here just because they're like people associate hard with Souls-like.
Right.
Now.
So
like, uncompromisingly difficult.
And yeah,
but even that, like even some of these games have difficulty options, but whatever.
Does it have a parry? Souls-like. Is it difficult? Souls-like.
And like I mean, like that was a bit forever, right? You would go like, this is the Souls-like of platforming games. This is the Souls-like. This is the Dark Souls of platforming games. What you're saying? This is the Dark Souls of tennis.
Yeah, it's just because it's hard. I don't know. It's stupid.
But like at the same time, like all it is to help sell the game to somebody who's like, I once played this very popular genre. I was a very popular game, and I want to play something else like that very popular game. So then, like, it comes down to cynically marketing and being like, well, if I call this a Souls-like, I'm gonna get more views on it, and I'm gonna get more people to try it.
Yeah.
And so like. Genres are all made up to begin with. What's an action event? What's an adventure game just by itself without action in it?
And listen,
Monkey Island.
I think this is going to come up when we play Game Duel in a little bit in the post show,
Mm-hmm.
cuz like that was the first it comes up for me all the time is I get like I get a few guesses in and I'm like, "All right, it's an action game and it's an adventure game. What isn't an action adventure game?"
Yeah.
It's very
Papers,
difficult.
please.
It's very difficult.
What,
It's very broad. Um but yeah, I don't know. I don't know how far I can go down the rabbit hole of Souls likes and clones and how they've become genre tags now. Um but I guess in the end I would say eventually um a Souls like tag will feel better than it does now. Just like
mm-hmm.
I think the rogue like and light stuff happened. I think at some point like Souls likes will not bother me like it does now.
Mm-hmm.
Um
I think that will happen eventually. I do think it's a little farther out, just because of like the nature of like Souls like games keep topping charts.
mhm,
Elden Ring sells millions of dollars,
mhm,
so people are going to still call things Souls likes to keep trying to get a little bit of the breadcrumbs.
yeah.
They're going to keep like roguelikes sell well and they are a buzzword still, but like they're not selling the same numbers that something like a Dark Souls or an Elden Ring are.
Right. And uh Twitch chat star of the show Dinnermancer
Mm-hmm.
says Animal Crossing and The Sims, I guess, aren't action adventure. And I could make an argument that Animal Crossing does have action and adventure in it. Because you are able to get, is it roguelike? Is Animal Crossing a roguelike? When you hop on Captain's boat, you get sent to random generated islands.
So next stop. Go to the next stop.
Next topic.
Mr. Rossetti's upset.
Mr. Rossetti is always upset. Next up, last topic of the day. We're gonna talk about, and this is something that Kay you kind of brought. This was your topic, remasters.
Yeah, I want to talk about remasters and kind of one. I don't want to. We can get into like what is a remaster, what is a remake, what is a reboot, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. Doesn't super matter for the main conversation I want to have. That's a very similar conversation to the one we just had, where like words are dumb.
Words are stupid.
But we're kind of in a year. I mean, like every year now is a year of remasters for a certain
audience.
For a certain audience. There's how do I want to start this? Okay, let's start at the top. Gex came out. Gex Trilogy came out. Is a
Gex
remaster. And I guess like the broad version of remaster that I'll be talking about is that it is either it's a way to play the game in the modern era that is accessible and that is in the works on modern platforms. Is the most important part. It looks like they did some magic on it to make it like look a little better, to not like shrink your screen to 480 or whatever, right? So it's able to play in wider resolutions. That's really all we need. Whether a game adds mechanics and features and whatnot, it's kind of important, but not this big selling point. Gex Trilogy came out, and I'm gonna say the easiest way and the least expensive way legally to play through Gex 1, 2, and 3.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. Video games are old. we're getting to that point where there are old video games that have some amount of culture zeitgeist at the time that old people like you and me remember, but have no way of playing anymore.
Yeah.
Um, Gex is a big one. I mean, Croc also came out with a remaster this year. And I think it's very important that from a game preservation standpoint and for the ability to like rather nerdedly to still be able to play all my favorite old games on hardware that I use to this day. Cool. 10 out of 10. Love remasters. That being said, a lot of developers and a lot of publishers get remasters kind of like wrong, kind of annoyingly. What's interesting about Gex Trilogy specifically is that it launched with the US like the cut of the game. And a lot of people were like not thrilled about that because apparently the PAL voice for Gex is more Austin Powers and less Jim Carrey, whatever have you. That being said, the day of, they were like, the game of release is like, oh, we patched the game, now the PAL guy's in there. Which is just weird. That's just like a weird thing I just wanted to talk about for a second is like, okay, you knew you had all the files and access to the PAL voice actor and the PAL version of the game, but why didn't you just put it in to begin with? Like, why didn't you just have? It's just weird. Again, it's just odd. Sometimes these things are really odd.
It's weird because it happened so fast. Because the Marvel Capcom collection did something similar where games came out and there were people who were like, yes, it's like, I don't remember the exact things, but they were like, it's the arcade version of this game, but it's the newest firmware update of that arcade version where like these combos and glitches and this stuff didn't work. And like the more competitive version that I played was this version of it, right? And later on down the road, they released a video and they updated the game. And they're like, hey, these versions of these games are now available. You can swap between version 3 and version 2.8 or whatever, you know? And that's cool. Cause that felt like they were like, oh, we can do that. Let's all right, let's put this together. We can do that. Let's get this for these people. Why not? We're still doing stuff on this. Whereas like this Gex thing, and maybe it was the same thing where they were like, oh yeah, we can do that. But it was like them doing it day one for the voice.
Like literally like hours after.
For this specific thing, good on them for doing it, number one.
For sure.
But I do see how it's like, people are like, what? You knew this. This is the Gex fans. When you go to the Gex Reddit, this is the Gex they're talking about. You know, you read the Gex fanfics. It's the PAL Gex.
They want European Gex.
Yeah.
It's such a wacky, like, is it like a wacky thing to consider in the world of remakes and remasters, and you know, trying to get my verbiage correct, that like you want these remasters to be celebrations of the game, and you also want to kind of find a way to modernize them a little bit. Games like Gex and games like Croc, the two big ones that for me that came out this year.
Ads.
Both are very like they tinker with the controls, so you're not controlling the same way that you were playing before. You are they aren't at like Croc isn't as tank control-y as he was, and I love that little guy, but doesn't control well on the PS1. And so now they've updated it a little bit so you have more fluid momentum, and that like there's a fun, interesting like argument being like, well, that gets rid of the integrity of the original. Like this is, and I'm like, but at the same time, no, like who cares? Like the game plays better, play it. That being said, for all of those sticklers, do you, when making this game, go like we should have an option in the way that the Halo collection has the option to switch between updated graphics and the old graphics, or how much development time does that even like take up? I just think it's like, I don't think you can please everyone with any of these remasters ever, but they are so important that it makes me annoyed that everyone is so picky about them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because
I
I want remasters of all my favorite games. Yeah.
I think there's definitely there's a fine line to balance between this plays exactly like it did in 1998 versus this plays exactly like I thought it
Mm-hmm.
played like in 1998. Where like you said, like these games, they Croc is less tanky.
Mm-hmm.
And like in modern day gaming, that's better. It feels better. But yeah, there are going to be people who are always like, well, this isn't Croc. This is a new version of this game. I want the old Croc
Mm-hmm.
back.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it it has to be just a resource thing and a time thing where it's like a company could do like here's the old controls and the new controls, just like companies do like here's the old graphics and our updated graphics, and like you can toggle between the two and whatnot. um it has to be a resource thing where it's just like we had our vision, we wanted to make this feel similar but more modern, um and we would love to add in the old controls. We don't have the resources, we don't have enough money to do that because we're Croc.
Mm-hmm.
we're
Yeah.
not we're not a Super Mario RPG,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Um, which was like the next game you had
Yeah,
in
Super Mario
here.
RPG is one of, and I could have also included the Year Door remake, are two just widely considered like just like awesome remasters. And or borderline remakes. But again, doesn't that's not what we're here to talk about. This game, if you want to play Super Mario RPG, one of the greatest role playing games of all time, and this is the way to play it now. You lose the like jagged pixely CRT kind of like romanticized aesthetic that I like a lot, but this game has all the charm. It plays pretty much exactly the same. There's some like little kind of mechanic twitches, like tweaks that make it less like I mean more player friendly. But like by all accounts, I don't need to point anyone to the Super Nintendo version anymore. A game that is over $100 for the cartridge, or however much money on the eShop back in the on the Wii that's now gone, or if you want to legally play this game, this is the way to play it. And it's an incredible way to play this game. This game is beautiful. This game is fun. It's silly. Um, like, but at the same time, it doesn't give you that option of like, here is the retro aesthetic because they had a vision for the remake. They had a vision for this like new way to play this old game, and they stuck with it. The orca, I think, like the music is also like redone. Um, which a lot of people are like, they like their MIDI soundtrack or they like their but at the same time, you can't please everyone. And I know I'm talking about like really the intricacies of like what do you add and what do you not add. Um, you can toggle back and forth between the old and new soundtrack. Yeah, Tinderman says yeah. He pointed out that, and he's yeah, and that's incredible because there's a couple like the Pixel remasters, Final Fantasy Pixel remasters also allow you to do that. They don't allow you to like necessarily um go back to old graphics, but they do allow you to do like the CRT filter. But at the same time, like more options to relive like the older versions of the game are good. Just make them playable, like even in the new way. I'm so happy this version exists.
Yeah,
I'm
I think one of the things that you said that stood out with this game is like it is different. It has its
Mhm.
differences,
It has
but
this triple move thing.
you
That's
don't
new.
have a reason to tell a normal person that they should play the original version over just this one. And it's because of that combination of accessibility with the quality and similarity that this has to that old one. Um, if you're gonna recommend somebody play the old version, I think it's a very specific person. Either they're speedrunning the
Mm-hmm.
game, or, which this does happen, I think specifically with this game too, where they're such a purist.
Mm-hmm.
They they want exactly how the old game was, because it was their absolute favorite game that they've ever played, because it is such an amazing game and it's a huge game. Um but from everything I've seen from this, yeah, there's like the accessibility that this has versus the old one.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason to like try to get the original, other than just trying to be a purist or like, a collector.
Mm-hmm. I saw the Yoshi game again there. This that will just it like one of the things against emulators is that the Yoshi game minigame works a lot worse on an emulator typically. Um uh and even like in the Super Nintendo, I think Mini, I don't think it works as well as it did on the original Super Nintendo because of like frame rate stuff. But this being a remastered version, or they're able to just like retool the mini game into a way that is easier to play. Um, because I know, like, I think specifically like the speedrunning community needs to do that mini game a certain amount of times or whatever to get certain things. Um, but remasters are cool. Sometimes they're bad. I don't like to be super negative about a lot of things, but you have like the Warcraft Reforged remastered, which kind of kills. Like, I would never tell somebody to go to that one. I would say it also, but remasters are a little weirder for like PC games because like you can typically play that easily.
Yes. Yeah. If yeah, because it's easier to find old PC games
Mm-hmm.
because the PC isn't a closed off like network. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's just an upgrade. You keep like PCs keep getting upgraded. Um and if if I want to play Mega Man X like I did when I was a kid through MS DOS, I can still do that on this computer.
Yeah, just a couple of hoops and ladders, but you can.
Yeah. I can still do that though. Whereas like, yeah, if I wanted, before this remake came out for Super Mario RPG, if I wanted to play that, I have to go get the original hardware and find the game somehow. Because it's just not readily available. It's been delisted. They don't make it anymore. Um, which is why, yeah, like I don't, I don't think there's like that same market of like old PC game collecting as there is console game collecting.
Yeah, I have a box in my closet that doesn't get displayed because one, I don't have room full of like gold box games and like floppy disk games, but they're in my closet because like you can't. I don't have a floppy disk import into my PC, and two, all of those games are available
Yeah.
for like $1. Like every single one, like all the old D&D games, all the old King's Quest games, those are all pretty easily accessible. Um, you can just they're just here. They're just on my computer. They're easy to download at any time, and they don't require the same mechanics of like trying to tell someone to play Earthbound
Yeah.
legally in 2025.
So, speaking of Earthbound,
Mhm.
Um, if Earthbound was to become more accessible, which it already has become more accessible, right? You can play Earthbound, I think, on NSO, right?
Yeah, yeah. Because again,
Um,
Nintendo, for a lot of the bad that they do with some of their decisions, make it fairly easy to play a lot of their earlier games,
and so
younger games.
Earthbound is accessible right now.
Mhm.
Um, Super Mario RPG wasn't very accessible. If Earthbound got a remaster, it sells like crazy, even though it
Mhm.
is accessible, right?
Yeah.
If you update the graphics any like you did with this Super Mario RPG, um, that game's gonna go crazy. Uh, some games I think don't. It doesn't matter about the remaster.
Mhm.
Um, part of it could be the accessibility of it. Part of it could be the generation, the console generations is part of. But for example, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles, one of my games of all time. Um, if they came out with a remaster of that,
Mhm.
I don't think I care.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Especially with um Sonic 4 existing.
don't talk about that
It,
game.
it would make me very nervous about a remaster.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but there's also like say for example, if they remastered Sonic 1 through 3 and Knuckles in the Sonic Superstars style,
Mhm.
um, is that exciting for anyone?
Yeah.
I I think it is for some people. Um, but I think those games have been in collections over and over again. Um,
Yeah, easily acceptable on GameCube, on 360,
yeah,
on every console that's ever existed from the big three.
and I don't I don't think changing its art style is enough.
Mm.
Um, more current Sonic games have some new mechanics on the way, like you run around and traverse with Sonic, which I think have been really good. Like in Sonic Mania, there's like the I forget what it's called exactly. It's like the drop dash kind
Yeah,
of
Drop
thing.
Dash.
Like there's new like Sonic is great when you're going fast and there's a lot of momentum, and the new Sonic games do it better than the old ones. If you add that stuff in, I like I don't know, that's not a big enough selling point. Like to
Yeah,
me,
I mean, I think there even was that Sonic
I
one,
you might be
two,
right.
three, and CD collection that came out maybe 2 years ago that
Yeah,
had you can now play it with Drop Dash and you can play as Amy
yeah.
or whoever, and it doesn't like it does mechanically change it in some parts, but at the same time, that's not as big of a selling point, I guess, because of Sonic's, as you said, its availability.
And I think just like in my mind at least it creates an interesting conversation for
Mhm.
myself at least on like when is a remaster exciting? When is a
Mhm.
remaster like feel like a good thing? And like all three games that we showed off trailers for, Gex, Croc, Super Mario RPG, I think the biggest part was its accessibility. You made it
Yeah,
more
for
accessible
sure.
and then you added like those modern elements to those games. Um, is there a, it's a tough question to answer. Can you think of a game that needs a remaster or that you would want to see remastered?
Um, on I mean, there are some that are just there are some they barely qualify. They're just missing from modern hardware.
Mm-hmm.
The easy one to say is Super Mario Galaxy 2. Uh which is a game that doesn't need a remaster. It just needs to be able to you just need to be able to play that
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
like a Switch or Switch 2. Famously missing from that collection. Um and like even in that same collection, like Mario 64 needs a little help. Champions of Norath, Dinnermaster says in the chat, is a great pull. Um and you could argue Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance, the PS2 RPG one, that is trapped on the PS2. I think actually maybe got ported, but to mixed results. I'll have to double check. But okay, for me, if I game that needs a remaster, a game that is we got our platformers. We had in the last 5 years we got Crash, we got Spyro, um we even got Sly. That one wasn't great if I recall. We got
Well, the Sly
Croc and
Cooper
Gex.
remaster also led into like a brand new game.
Yes, yes. Um, I mean, like, we kind of got a Ratchet and Clank remaster, even though it's not called. It's a whole new game. It's a reboot. So, like, I don't think you would ever remaster Ratchet and Clank 1, 2, and 3. Although they might have for the PS3. They did. Everything I can think about are platformers because that's where my brain's at.
So what you're saying is everything that needs to be remastered has already been remastered. We don't
No, I
need
just
any
can't
more.
think. I just can't think. I
No.
just can't think.
So for me,
Um.
I'll go while you think.
Oh, I got one.
The first thing that comes to my mind is what I already said is like Earthbound.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a remaster for Earthbound 1 and 2, um I would be excited for that. I think that would just be it's a very hype exciting thing for people to see Earthbound again in some new form. For me personally, I think that's something that's exciting because um I never played through those original games. I've played some Earthbound, the first one. Um but I think it draws it like a little extra entice from me to go back and see them new. Um and then the other one I'll say, which like it kind of did get a remake once before. Um Sonic Adventure 2. Give me the chows again.
Mm-hmm.
Give me the
We always go
chows
back to
again.
how the fact that there's not available. There's not an easy way to have chows in the modern era.
Give me Sonic
Like
Adventure 2 and new chow stuff. Put in new remaster it with new chows and new chow mini games.
online chow competitions.
Online chow garden competitions. Yes. I want chow esports.
That's a good one. That's a
Chow
good one.
sports.
Selfishly, like I don't know, it's tough because like I'm gonna get a little out of your wheelhouse and go to my wheelhouse. Why we both have wheelhouses, I'll never understand. Um, the dot hack quadrilogy for the PS2 are trapped on the PS2, and they could definitely use quality of life features, and they could definitely use a collection in the same way that the other dot hack series in the PS2, the GU games, did get a port and a remaster and a complete like just an upresed everything. Game is and it got an extra chapter. These are very more or less niche games, in the grand scheme of things. But those are games that I hold very near and dear to my heart. I love those 4 games, the ones that are still trapped there. And I would love for them to just touch them up, make them playable on modern consoles. So there's that. And like everything else I have, we stuff we know is happening, like rumor wise, so we don't really know, but like there's a lot of Fire Emblems trapped in old consoles. There's a lot of Fire Emblems that need quality of life features. and needs accessible ways to play and translations, which I guess is another like a big part of the conversation for me, is that there's a lot of really neat games that have never been ported out west, never been translated out
Mother
west.
3.
Mother 3. Um, there's a bunch of old Shin Megami Tensei games that haven't been ported over or remastered. They're just trapped in Japan on Famicoms. Um, Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Banjo and Kazooie. Give me remasters of Banjo Kazooie and Tooie.
Yeah, I mean,
Even more than the Rare Replay ways.
I was gonna say even Ukulele got a remaster.
Yeah,
It just got Yuka Replay.
yeah, an okay game.
Yeah, yeah, it's fine.
I guess like the last thing I just wanted to touch upon is, and then we can get out of here and get into Gamedle.
Mm-hmm.
Is the Final Fantasy Tactics, the remake coming out, which I'm super excited for. It is interesting. An interview just dropped today that I haven't been able to fully listen to or read. So I don't want to talk about the whole thing. I don't want to go through the whole thing, but developer who's oh my gosh, I just had it. Talks a lot about how, yeah, we wanted to remaster Final Fantasy Tactics Singular, and not the War of the Lions PSP version.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like a big discussion, really annoyingly, on the internet between,
as there always is,
if this is the right call or not. The War of the Lions has really kind of artistically really neat cutscenes that are in the game. They have extra guest characters, like Balthier from Final Fantasy 12 is in it. There's balance changes to the classes to make some classes more viable and some less overpowered. And so, but the developer whose name my brain is not working on, starts with an M, talked about how he's like, yeah, like we were passionate about the original version that is like on the PS1. That's the game that this whole team worked on. The same, like that's the one we want to realize today. And that's the one, like, and it's interesting because he's like, he says that at the same time, and he's like, we don't want to mess with the old, but then he's also like, oh, but there's like more dialogue now that there's voice acting. And he's like, now that we have the ability to have voice acting, we can have more dialogue because it's gonna go into like the relationships and their stories and their narrative. And I'm like, okay, so you are tinkering with the original game at the same time. That you only want to respect the original game. Also, Matsuno. That's the name of it.
Matsuno.
It's just interesting. People are up in arms because people are going to be up in arms about everything.
It doesn't matter.
None of this changes the fact that I'm super excited to play this game.
I probably won't play it, but I'm very excited. I'm very happy that it's happening. Actually, I think I have my Game Boy Advance version in this room somewhere.
Yeah.
Which is cool. But yeah, I think that's it for the show.
Mm-hmm.
Park Bench, episode 3, June 17th. Next week we'll come back. Who knows what we'll actually be talking about, but we'll have probably played FBC Firebreak. We'll have seen the Donkey Kong Direct.
Mm-hmm.
Switch sales will continue to sail. Maybe we get more remasters.
More games will come out. Yeah, more games will be remastered.
Yeah, but
in theory.
But yeah, that's it for today. Thank you for being here and listening live. I put this on YouTube too. Someday I'll do more with the YouTube. If you watched this at all on YouTube, thank you. How'd you find it? But yeah, we'll keep growing this little project we're doing, making it look nicer, run nicer, sound nicer, I'm surprised we got 3 hours today. That's we were yapping, which is good.
We always, yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
we generally seem to be spending around 30 minutes on a topic. Generally.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there have been a few times where I've looked at the clock and been like, "Oh, should we stop talking about this? Because I know we're going to talk about the next thing for another 30 minutes." But then it just, I don't know, it naturally ends anyway.
Mhm.
Yeah, if you're here live, we're gonna do a little post show until I have to go to work. So stick around until after the outro. Again, this was the Park Bench. Thank you very much for being here. I'm C Parks. Goodbye.
I'm Golden Rose K.
And
I yield my time.
thanks.
And this is where we would play the outro song if I had finished it by now.
Someday you'll finish it. Thank you. Maybe next week. I don't know.